Hello. In this video, I want to go over a sort of basic overview of the new Canvas system, especially since UCR is moving towards this very quickly. The purpose or the aim of this video is to go over some of the major scopes of Canvas, especially focused on TAs who are looking to build discussion sections inside Canvas, or maybe instructors who just sort of want a very brief lay of the land. I think the most important thing to think about when you're thinking about Canvas is understanding how Canvas sort of thinks about itself, or the way that it wants to understand or wants you to understand how your course is going to operate. Canvas really wants you to focus on creating modules that represent a particular point of class time and then linking everything to the modules so that a student can sort of flow through the modules in a logical manner. You have a number of different categories of things like assignments and discussions and quizzes and all of these things, but they're all designed to be fed into this module system. And so creating one thing in one place will also create it in the other category, right? It will sort of be shared between everything. So here's what I mean. I've created a few test modules. I have this sandbox that UCR set up for me. We have these few test modules here. I've set them up. I like to set up my modules week by week. And in here, we can add any file we want. Now, I've preloaded this with a couple of things. I have an assignment that I've developed called Test 1, and we can plug that right into the modules section. But before we do this, I want to talk a little bit about this assignments section and what goes in here. The other way Canvas really wants you to think about your class is in terms of weighted percentages. It wants you to create groups of assignments, give them weighted percentages, and then use those assignments to fill out the rest of your class. So what I've done here is I've created 3 groups of assignments, which you can create just by clicking the plus group up here, give it a group, and give it a percentage of the total grade. Once you do that, it'll do all of the math for you. It'll fill in these sections over here, and then you can populate these assignments or things with anything you want. If you create, and this is sort of the strange thing about Canvas sometimes, if you were to create a new assignment in this section, you'll only be able to create like traditional like uploading things assignments, right? So if students wrote a paper and they needed to upload it to Canvas so you can grade it, this is how you would do this, right? You'd go in here, you'd choose the points, you'd put it in your assignments group, you would choose how they would create or give you the submission. So this is also good if you're doing participation or something like this. You would then go to create a new assignment, you'd title it participation, you'd make it no submission, which means the students don't have to do anything, and you'd pick a due date. However, if you wanted to do something else like a discussion board or a quiz, then you would have to create it in the appropriate place. Now, here's the interesting thing, or the cool thing, is you can do this. Yes, you could go to quizzes and create a quiz and make your quizzes there, or you could do everything in modules. So we have our modules, and let's just say we want to put our test that we've already created in week 2. We just click the little plus, and then when we're adding an assignment or we're adding something to week 2, and we see that we already have this test that we've created, we just click there, and boom, the link is right there. Now, this is the same exact thing from the earlier assignment. It's just placed in the modules. But if we wanted to add, say, a discussion to week 1, we'd do the same thing. We click the plus. Instead of an assignment, we click discussion. We create a new topic for the discussion, and we just write test discussion. And there we go. We add the item to the thing. Now, as you might have seen, that doesn't add anything useful, right? It doesn't add a prompt or doesn't add anything, points or all of that. So what you would then have to do is click on it and then edit the discussion and do everything you need to do. The title, the prompts or any instructions you want to give, who you want to give this section to, all of these sorts of things. The other thing to recognize is if something is going wrong, if you're not sure why your students don't have access to something or they don't see it the right way, chances are it's because it's not fully published. Canvas, when you create anything, the default is to create it in a way that is hidden from your students. You have to go through and make sure that everything is published. Everything is published when it has a green check mark next to it. So test 1 is published. However, because test 1 is inside of the week 2 module, and the week 2 module itself is not published, students will not be able to see test 1. This is a tricky thing that sometimes happens. And so what you do is you would have to make sure that both your module and your assignment inside of the module are both published. Similarly, you go down here and you just click these things, and now students are able to see this test discussion that we have. Another interesting thing to point out or to show is the discussion of the course calendar. The course calendar is incredibly useful. It's very helpful. If you click on it, it will take you to a calendar page where it will show you everything that's going on for all of your classes. So for example, here we have my 5W class that I've created, fully good to go. I have different due dates and things that you can have and provide to your students. But the most interesting or the best thing about this is that everything here is draggable. Right, so we made this test 1 and I made it due on Monday the 4th, but if I want to change that date, it's as simple as saying, well, I would rather put it on the 11th. And now everything is changed inside Canvas. It works perfectly. This is incredibly useful if you want to move your class from one quarter to the next, right? If you want to create a template for a discussion in section and then run it every quarter. Every time you have a new discussion section, you can bring it in and then just drag all of your things around. And Canvas even has a built-in system to adjust all of the dates for you. But sometimes it doesn't get it right, or there's holidays or whatever, and so you can just go right into the calendar thing and just move everything around as needed. While we're here, the other really useful thing to put in the calendar section is this. You can create a sort of set of meeting times that students can actually sign up for right in the calendar. Students have access to this calendar as well. I see everything you let them see. And so when you add and you go to create a new event, you can actually create an appointment group. You can name it something like office hours and have students sign up for specific time slots for you to meet with them. And this is really great if you're trying to do like online office hours or things like that. That way you know who's showing up, you limit it so there's not like 50 students in your office hours at one time, and it can be really helpful. So I highly recommend doing that. Now, we'll go back. The way you go back to your course is you click your dashboard, and then you click your course. But one of the things I want to show now, we'll have to go into my 5W class to do, which is sort of, you can do all sorts of fancy things like this with links and everything if you edit it and go to this. It will open this design tools tab, which is kind of complicated and hard to deal with, but if you play with it enough, you kind of get a handle on it, and you can do things like add these images, add these links to things, the quick links to all of the syllabi, to everything that you're talking about. It's very helpful, can give you a sort of nice polished look to the beginning of your course. But I want to also talk sort of lastly about grading things in Canvas. Now, there are two ways to grade things, and I think what you really want to do is you really want to learn how to use the speed grader. The speed grader is incredibly useful and can be really helpful. And so when you go to the grade book right here, and I'll try to blur out all of the students' names in post, when you go to the gradebook, it will load in everything. It will show you all of your stuff, and then when you need to grade something, you can just go in, click the little dots next to it, and go to the speed grader for that particular assignment. Now, the other way to do this is, and this might be more true if you are like me and you have a large lecture class and you want to sort of delegate grades out to people, you can do it directly through the assignments. Because what will happen is Canvas will give you a to-do list of everything you need to grade. So I created a fake student and had them submit their first assignment just to play around with it. And so this, you can go and just grade your to-do list, but if you're a one TA out of several, or you have a lot of students, this could really start to rack up, and you want to be able to choose your TAs or your students over other students. So the way to do this is in the actual assignment itself. So if you go to the assignment and you go to the thing that is specifically due, right? So this is the self-assessment that I've made due. You can actually choose to grade based on the group. So I've had the people who set up this Canvas put all of my students in their respective discussion sections inside of this Canvas shell. So when you click on this fake student doesn't really work well, but when you click on this, it will create a drop-down menu of all of the discussion sections, and so you can go directly to your discussion section and grade only the students that are in your section. So you can do your own grading without trying to pick out your students from the list of like the 200 total students here. The last thing is actually what this speed grader looks like. You can create rubrics and add rubrics to things. The important thing to do with the rubric is just when you're adding a rubric to an assignment, you have to create a rubric, and then you have to create an assignment, and then you have to link them together. And when you do that, you just have to make sure that you've checked the easy to miss little box that says use rubric for like grading, and then it will like make the calculation and actually turn everything into points. But when you go into this grade center, it takes you to this speed grader page, which is very useful and despite it taking forever, is much faster, I find, than the old iLearn discussions or way of grading things. So we have this test student who made this fake entry, but let's say I want to grade it, and so I would grade it by, I've made this assignment a incomplete assignment, so I'd go to this drop-down menu, I'd make it complete, and then I'm done grading it. Now, the way to then move on to the next student is you could either archaically take your mouse and go all the way up and click the little next button, and then then go on to the next student, or you could learn your keyboard shortcuts. For some reason, and it doesn't really make all that much sense, the letter J is the one that moves you on to the next student, and the letter K moves you backwards to the previous student. So the way I like to do this is I sort of have one hand on my keyboard, typing in numbers and jumping between students, and then one hand on my mouse sort of managing things. And if you do this, you can find that you can run through a whole host of grading rather quickly, especially if there's rubrics and everything. You can just sort of jump between students, and you'll get very familiar with this speed grader assignment. Getting back from the speed grader to the main page is kind of difficult. It's why I usually open it up in a new tab, but you just click on the assignment itself and it will bring you back to the assessment page, and then from there you can go home or you can go to your modules, and then you can see that there are all sorts of interesting things that you can do with Canvas, right? So I have all of my instructions, all of my videos, all my PDFs. So even if you're just using Canvas to dump PDFs, I would create modules and put them all in there. And then you can even get really fancy and make your instructions sort of look fancy and have portraits and pictures and your readings and all of these things linked to everything that you need to do. If you have any questions or concerns about that, shoot me an email and I'm happy to help you out.